Last year I said that 2021 was the start of a new era, but I take that all back. That was the end of an older era, and 2022 is definitely the start of a new one for me. Looking back, 2021 was me forever benchmarking himself against previous years, and he seemed to be attacked on all sides by influencers and individuals, which left him bitter. But 2022 me is different. My real life has got so busy that the online has had to take a back seat, which I think has been good for me, if not so much for my YouTubing stats. But when being online comprises of declining YouTube views, and the news is all about the threat of nuclear war, political instability and constant disasters, how can you not grow numb to that sort of stuff, and to seek other pursuits instead? This year I bought a house, my music kit got accepted into CSGO, and it feels like the world is finally opening up again post-COVID, and that things can start getting back to normal again. All of these positive things have been marred by stupid problems for me, but I acknowledge the general vibe of 2022 for me has been positive. With regards to the house buying and music kit, it was 2021 that did the hard work. It was back then that I held the Bitcoin and had created the music kit in the hope that it would be accepted. 2022 is merely me reaping the rewards of past actions and investments. Thanks, younger Philip. The house has been ridiculous. You look at a door that needs fitting and you think, that's a half-hour job, and then it ends up taking half a day. You do some panelling and what looks like a simple jigsaw project suddenly becomes a mathematical nightmare. That's something scary I've noticed. Mental arithmetic was something I used to do without thinking. Now I still do it without thinking, but I get the wrong result. Have I just become rusty from years of Excel doing it all for me? Or have I suffered a mini aneurysm of sorts that's made me suddenly rubbish at maths now that I finally need it? I don't know, but I've seriously lost my maths mojo. Now it finally comes in handy for measuring stuff out and for drilling holes. The inclusion of my music kit into CSGO has been the real success story of 2022. Buying my parents increased financial stability, marking a high point for my dad's music making career, and proving to me that Valve doesn't resent me in some way. It's really lovely to have something of mine in Counter-Strike for real, with it having been such a large part of my life for literally decades now. However, financially for me it's been a real chore, because 2022 has made it really clear to me that the world doesn't like me existing. I'm this magical YouTubing guy who sells Bitcoin and now, just months after, coincidentally gets a music kit featured in some gambling game in America. It sounds like I'm living the dream, yet the English financial system doesn't like it, with my existence seemingly lighting every red warning light there is. And it's making my life a misery. To buy a house, I literally had to hire a forensic accountant to investigate myself for fraud. But that's nothing compared to the ordeal of trying to prove to the banks that this music kit money isn't some foreign gambling thing. So far, I've failed at this, as these last 6 months have been a case of me going to banks, waiting for an appointment, explaining the situation to someone, being told it's all fine, going through all the procedures to open up an account, but then when I finally attempt to open up an international dollar account to be able to receive the music kit funds, I'm declined because clearly every bank in England sees me as social influencing toxic slime that's involved in some shady foreign gaming, gambling, black market, and no bank in England wants to be associated with that. All this has just been an extra hassle that I really didn't need when there were so many other things I needed to get done this year. It has wasted solid weeks of my life during the most financially profitable period of the YouTubing year, and I'm beginning to joke that it would actually be easier just to launder all this money than it is to try and prove my innocence. Don't get me wrong, I feel I'm leading the way towards YouTubing becoming an accepted type of job, but I'm ploughing straight into every hurdle along the way. I don't think I've ever been as ill as many times as I have been this year. It seems like every holiday I go on, I'm struck down by something really nasty. When visiting Morocco, I had the worst food poisoning of my life. I was there hallucinating at 3 in the morning, dehydrated, with no water, in the middle of nowhere, and I genuinely wondered if I was going to die. The next day I shat myself on a camel. This whole year has been a rollercoaster ride of good and bad experiences that you just wouldn't believe if I told you them. For instance, a few months ago I received a new computer, but of course it had to be difficult, so it was sent to my old address, so I hatched this master plan to collect it on the way to the dentist's. I misjudged the timing and it became the toughest hour-long run of my life, ending with the nurse having to help me into the room brandishing several huge boxes of expensive computing hardware, and as I lay there, out of breath, drenched in sweat, dentist's tools in my mouth and a pile of computer hardware in the corner, I asked myself, how does this happen to me? On the plus side, my teeth are excellent. A few months ago in Belfast, I literally lost my voice. Not just a bit hoarse, but total silence for the best part of a week, and the most vicious sore throat I've ever had. And my voice hasn't been the same since. Maybe people's voices change as they get older from the accumulated damage of 1,000 colds. I was struck down with something else nasty the other week, just for good measure, which meant I couldn't taste anything for one day, with that day, of course, being Christmas Day. Imagine discovering you've lost your sense of taste as you're having the nicest meal of the year. That's 2022 for me. It's been that sort of year where every blue sky has a black cloud lining. And while I've been feeling really sorry for myself with my blocked nose and sore throat, people online have resented me for it, accusing me of slyly testing AI voice generation in my videos. It reminds me of how people thought my scripts were AI generated after that video I did on AI script generation. Everyone thinks they're so clever for detecting these things, when really it's merely proving the point that nobody knows what's real or fake anymore. So the joke's on you, I'm not AI generating stuff, I'm just really ill, almost constantly. This year I got Fluffykins, an equally disease-ridden, rescue centre reject of a cat who I love dearly. She is a sweet soul, both lively and snuggly, has never scratched me, and has stolen the title away from the toilet seat as being the thing I talk to most. I mean, I have a girlfriend as well, but she's out working most of the day. Otherwise, I'm sure she'd be the thing I talk to most. Very hard to think of a name for her. Early suggestions included Asbestos, Nice Cat 1, and my favourite, Link. You know, after that princess that Zelda rescues. But the name Fluffykins came about naturally because of all her bald patches from her over-grooming neuroses, and it's a lovely tribute to the Moggy from Bodger and Badger, which is of course the peak of British television. She sits on me as I work, we play games around the house with a laser pointer, and she even follows me out as I empty the bins. She even sleeps in bed with me, much to the dismay of my girlfriend, who I will say was the one who got her. And she is greedy. I didn't know that cats could be so food motivated. She's constantly begging for food all day long. She's clawed donuts out of sealed containers and bored down to the middle of them to extract their gooey goodness. She has clawed through Weetabix packets, literally making shredded wheat. She goes for key lime pies and even assaulted a bag of raisins, which are poisonous for cats. We had to feed her charcoal, which is apparently very difficult to feed cats because they don't eat it. But luckily, Fluffykins being Fluffykins, she devoured all that up as well. So yeah, the house has pretty much become a no food zone, and it's helped me to diet because I can't enter the kitchen without paying the cat treat tax. Unfortunately, she also majorly drains my productivity by requiring constant attention in games. And this pose, although adorable, does make it awfully difficult to type out scripts, to record audio, pretty much to do anything on the computer. I've had no choice but to become smarter and more efficient with the way in which I work on my videos. And I must say, I got an unholy amount of work done the day she was away at the vet's. I tried locking her out of my room, but my door doesn't have a lock and she proceeds to tear the house up and to repeatedly headbutt my door to get in again. Even a doorstop isn't enough to stop her. This must be what it's like to have children, only without the payoff when you get older. But she's played a part in many of my videos to date and I suspect will continue to do so. I look at some of those clips that she's in and I worry that people think I'm deliberately exploiting her by setting up elaborate scenarios where she does silly stuff. No, that's just Fluffykins. So I think that's the rest of my life covered. What about my YouTubing? The novelty of producing and releasing content does fade. It's a gradual process over many years, yet there are still vivid moments I remember, like where I booted up the editing software or released a video and thought, hey, this doesn't give me the same thrill it used to. Maybe it isn't even healthy to try and enjoy everything about YouTubing. Maybe it's better that I treat it like a job, with lots of bad and occasional good bits. I suspect it's more sustainable to feel like this about it, even if it is a lot more boring. I thought this indifference would spell the end of my YouTubing career, but if anything it's made me better, because it requires something special to get me excited about a project. Because when I used to find everything about YouTubing enjoyable, I would occasionally release stuff to negative reception and would wonder why people didn't enjoy it as much as I did. But now that I'm my own harshest critic, I'll aggressively edit things down until I'm happy, and will be willing to discard entire projects if they don't satisfy me. And 2kliksphilip has been the focus of these special projects this year. The birth of the special, normal video. Ogrub was the start of this sort of content. A longer video comprising of lots of smaller standalone sketches. 3kliksphilip has got those kinds of sketches and has made them into short videos, while 2kliksphilip's content has become increasingly about being those sketches themselves. The Grand Unified Toilet Theory video is a great example of this. That is pretty much just a load of sketches strung together into a video. But right from the very start of January 2021, I worked on making every video special in some way, featuring several small standalone sketches which required I made something like a Kinect gun or went outside to film something. This adds variety to the viewing experience, as well as for me making it. These are always things I dread doing because they're extra work and are of unknown quality at the time, but they almost always pay off big time. What's a few extra hours of work if it makes a week-long project into something special? And 2kliksphilip's viewing figures this year have been good, if not great. That's my feeling at least. I haven't looked at the stats yet, I'll be doing that later in the video. I feel the videos I'm producing for that channel are investments that will continue to pay off into the future, and while per hour I'd still be better off making content for 3kliksphilip instead, I acknowledge that the day is approaching where 2kliksphilip will become my biggest channel. It's already reaching a stage where I could make it my main one without losing too much. But 3kliksphilip carries on and has borrowed a few ideas and themes first explored by 2kliksphilip. I do believe the standard of content across all my channels this year to be the best yet. 3kliksphilip was mostly about fulfilling obligations and keeping up appearances despite few game updates from Valve, but 2kliksphilip was allowed to truly thrive this year. This kliksphilip channel, on the other hand, has been squeezed out. I do a lot of stuff worth covering, but 2022 was not the year to talk about it. I was too busy, you see. As Christmas approaches, ad revenue increases, and so it becomes more and more important that I make lots of successful content. This has typically involved focusing on 3 kliksphilip, but with 2 kliksphilip on such a roll and with the release of something popular like Portal RTX coinciding with this season, 2 kliksphilip became my focus, and for the first year ever, had a better December than 3 kliksphilip did. That's a crucial milestone for me, even if it was more that 3 kliksphilip had a poor month than it was 2 kliksphilip having an excellent one. It's a bit scary actually that 2 kliksphilip achieved several videos with over 500,000 views in December, yet it still wasn't a great month. I've had this feeling that YouTube murders old content for a while now. Older videos which used to earn views year after year have just suddenly stopped, and any video after the first few days of release now just flatlines. Is this YouTube killing off all but the most popular and regular channels? Is this a sign that viewers have changed their habits? I don't know. But it isn't great news for my content. So let's look at the stats. This will be interesting for me too, as I've not done this a lot this year. If I'm honest, I've been a little bit afraid to. To summarise, it's been a record-breaking year, beating out last year as being the new worst year I've had since 2014. 3 kliksphilip's views and subscribers are both down, but 2 kliksphilip's are up. But bear in mind, I've been treating that channel like my main one this year, and have dedicated far more time and effort to it than I have in previous years. So had it not seen an improvement, then that would have been dire indeed. These graphs help visualise the scale of the problem. Now, 2020 was a bit of an anomaly, what with there being COVID and everybody being inside to watch YouTube, and so I think everybody's channels did well that year. So that kind of explains some of the drop in 2021, along with what I expect were algorithmic changes of some sort. But who knows what normal is anymore? I'll have a better idea in a year's time. But for now, 2022 feels kind of like 2021 again. Probably a bit better if anything, considering how little time I spent making content for my main 3 kliksphilip channel this year. Let me put this into context. 3 kliksphilip's views dropped by 7 million, but he only made 45 videos, compared with 85 last year. So when I say made videos, I don't count the short ones since they're just snippets from main videos, and I'm not counting all those Bot Wars ones, just because they didn't get many views, they weren't very popular, and so I don't think they deserve to all be called separate videos. But my point being, I made more views per proper video released this year than I've ever managed before, but we will have to discuss the impact that shorts have had, since they serve to confuse everything. 2 kliksphilip has seen the same sort of thing, more views per video released than the last few years at least, but his gain has been nowhere near enough to justify the sheer amount of time that every video made for that channel took this year. So while I'm very proud of what 2 kliksphilip has made, he should have lowered the quality and just made more instead. So yeah, while the stats this year are bad, they're not terrible. And subscriber growth is a similar story. 2 kliksphilip achieved success, but in the grand scale of things it wasn't enough to balance the Klik Empire's performance out. I suppose, perhaps because it's been a rather bad year, I don't feel like investigating much further, but I probably should. 3 kliksphilip's channel. I cannot talk about 3 kliksphilip's analytics without mentioning shorts, which continue to bolster and to obscure the channel's actual success. How much are shorts worth to me? Greater than nothing, but not by much. I've tried to use them for what they're good at, but it's becoming clear to me that this is something YouTube is forcing, and it doesn't benefit my content nor my channel to create that sort of content. I still make short videos as and when they're suitable, since they're just minutes of my time for potentially millions of views and several tens of thousands of extra subscribers a year, but their unbalanced and disconnected nature is making me start to resent them, because it all feels fake. It's always nice to gain views and subscribers, but unless it's from a logical and understandable source, I feel cheated. And to get the algorithm blessing my shorts a few days a year doesn't cut it. The problem is, I can't ignore the shorts because this year a sizable portion of 3 kliksphilip's views came from shorts, despite very little effort on my behalf. I produced just over half the number of shorts as I did main videos, and they gained over half the number of views and over half the number of subscribers. My most viewed, second most, third most, and fourth most viewed videos this year are all shorts. I didn't know which ones until now because it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they get millions of views, they're not real views. And the videos chosen just feel like whichever ones the algorithm wants them to be. The fifth most successful video is the one that I actually care about, which was the classic offensive one, which I properly invested time and effort into, and it's nice to see it doing rather well. And I got another 5 videos this year which also surpassed the 500,000 view mark. Looking at this most viewed videos list, something else is standing out too. Almost all these videos, apart from the shorts, were made this year. That's unusual. Historically, a large portion of my new views and subscribers every year come from older content of mine. But it's almost like YouTube's trying to hide older content these days. The viewing figures for those older videos have dropped right off, which you can see from this chart where I show how many views are needed to reach the top 100 most viewed list on my channels every year. Typically, you would expect the figures to grow every year since older videos accumulate more views, but as you can see, they haven't grown by much this year because those older videos aren't being viewed. In 2020, my 100th most viewed video grew by over 100,000 views. In 2022, it grew by just 14,000. I'm pleased I document this sort of stuff because it now shows just how much things have slowed down. It is what it is, and in a way I suppose it's a good thing, since I did say I liked for my views and subscribers to correlate with what I make, and this is what that looks like. But this increased emphasis on new content is a big reason for why I get fewer views than I used to, and it means that your channel's success on YouTube is no longer the product of the last 10 years. It's now dictated by whatever you made this week. And shorts, obviously. And in case I hadn't yet got my point across about how much I hate shorts, let's break down the monthly views into shorts and longs. The long content correlates with what I care about. The shorts are nothing more than YouTube blessing my channel algorithmically for a few days, and then abandoning me again. But those few days are still enough to skew my figures massively, and to make the total viewing figures useless as a metric of how good or successful my content is. All this diminishes my achievements on YouTube down to the whims of, I'm not even sure anymore, algorithms. It feels meaningless. So meaningless that it's more of an inconvenience to see the short stats, propping up my stats for the channel. Here's how kliksphilip's channel compares. You see that? Last January, YouTube randomly kissed the channel for a few days and let shorts rocket away, dwarfing the rest of the year for views. And since then, nothing. kliksphilip's viewing figures may be lower than kliksphilip's, but all of them are real and connected with what I'm making and when. I like kliksphilip a lot more. I used to try and stick to a routine of sorts. I was never good at getting a video out on a set day every week, but I did at least aim for 1 or 2 videos a week. But now I don't see the point of doing that anymore. In the past, provided I did at least make one, my views and subscribers continued to climb in the meantime. But these days, just a day or so after my latest video's release, the channel's stats will have dropped so low again it's as if I hadn't released anything for months. There is no momentum on YouTube anymore. It's like unless I'm going to produce daily content, my channel will slip into obscurity in the meantime. And I'm not going to make daily content. I can't with the sort of stuff that I make. So that's why I've changed my approach and have focused on kliksphilip instead, making the types of videos I want as and when I want to. I don't want to spend too long on the analytics in this video, but kliksphilip's performance this year has been good. He managed to get 6 videos into the top 100 for his channel of all time. Bearing in mind they have to compete against videos which have had years and years to accumulate views, that's very good going. Sorting it by most viewed, oh look, shorts make up the 1st, 2nd and 4th most viewed videos for the year. And almost all these views were attained in January. But ignoring shorts, things get a bit more interesting. Compared with kliksphilip's channel, kliksphilip's viewing success this year comes a lot more from older content, suggesting that kliksphilip's videos have a longer shelf life than kliksphilip's ones do. Which is kind of ironic, given that kliksphilip focuses on new and emerging stuff. But just like kliksphilip also manages 6 new videos in this year to break the 500,000 view barrier. These are 2 Unreal 5 tech demos, the Slow Roads one, which is interesting to me because I would not have guessed that one to be so popular. It came at a time when every video I made seemed to be a gigantic undertaking, and it was just refreshing to be able to make one in a couple of hours. The fact it did so well is just an unexpected bonus. Portal RTX gets a few popular videos too, which I was more than happy to make content about given how awesome it is to see ray tracing in a Source game. And Place 2022's there as well, following the success that the previous Place video I made got. So how should kliksphilip do better in 2023? Well, I can't really see a trend of what's popular on this list. It's more just kliksphilip making kliksphilip content, and some of it happens to get popular. So I do well in 2023 to make more videos, covering new stories as and when they come out. And maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't spend quite so long on each of those videos. Firstly, because breaking news doesn't do quite so well the following day, and also because when I look at which of these videos took the longest to make, it doesn't look like they benefited at all from that. It's not like my Matrix review, the Grand Unified Toilet Theory, or the Armor graphics comparison videos did badly, but to think that I spent a week on each of those, coming up with unique sketches and constructing a complex storyboard for how each of those would play out, only for them all to be outperformed by a quick and dirty video showcasing a few minutes of pretty graphics. Quantity over quality, Philip. Produce enough kliksphilip videos for enough of them to become successful by chance, and invest the rest of your time, love and effort into making kliksphilip's videos something special. His get the views to deserve it. But I'm not going to overthink things too much. My success on YouTube has moved away from planning and strategy and more towards just getting stuff out as and when it happens, and in praying to the algorithm. I haven't even bothered analysing this kliksphilip channel's success. It's taken a back seat this year because, like I said, it's been a very busy year. But I've made a few decent videos covering some of the events and uploaded some really pretty videos of Iceland, which are worth checking out because they are really pretty. Now I have to show you these predictions from last year because one was spot on. Having surpassed 1 million subscribers, kliksphilip no longer shows an exact subscriber amount anymore, but I can confirm that kliksphilip's subscriber growth was, indeed, the same as it was last year. And so the forecast of 1,058,000 subscribers was almost exactly right. And far better than my very conservative expectation of 1,030,000. So woo, something to celebrate. kliksphilip overperformed my low expectations this year. 2kliksphilip's growth was also better than I expected, smashing both the predictions made. And kliksphilip landed exactly where I predicted, growing by a massive 2,000 subscribers in total. This year I'm remaining optimistic that I can grow further, hoping for at least 231,000 by the end of the year on this channel. That's still like 3 people a day I have to wow. I'm going to be bullish on 2 and 3kliksphilip, predicting more growth than I saw in 2022. In 2kliksphilip's case, by a lot more. Maybe I'm just hoping for algorithmic blessings. Let's be positive and hopeful. In conclusion, the dropping stats have kind of leveled off a bit, I'm accepting that, and I'm using my time to make videos that I want to make and which I consider to be high in quality. I have to accept that what I'm doing isn't as successful as what I used to do. With 3kliksphilip, CSGO continues to be popular, but it's mostly about the pro scene now, rather than the game itself, which is more the aspect that 3kliksphilip covers. But I like covering that aspect of it, and I'm yet to find something about the pro scene that gels well with that kind of content. So 3kliksphilip remains loved and known for what he does, but trundles ever closer to his eventual irrelevance. Meanwhile, the rest of YouTube is setting, forming into a shape that it doesn't like changing from. If you like, say, Rollercoaster 2 content, then you'll already have a favourite YouTuber for that kind of stuff. And you'll like him not just for his content, but also for his style and personality. So if 4Loops Philip comes along and offers the same kind of thing, you're not going to be like, cool, more Rollercoaster Tycoon content. You're going to be more like, stop ripping off the guy covering this content that I like already. Yep, YouTube's audience already has a list of channels that they like watching, with very big, very popular and very well established YouTubers now covering most of the niches. What's being promoted is gradually losing its variety and favouring fewer and bigger content creators who have teams working for them to hit the regular content output that's required to keep pace with the competition. And audiences are growing faithful to what they know. And all this is bad news for a slut like 2kliksphilip, who does what he wants, when he wants, and expects it to be perks all the way. He expects his new video about roller coasters to be popular, because who doesn't like roller coasters? But then he's surprised when people hate him for copying that other YouTuber who already does that kind of stuff, but also who hate him for all the ways that he's different to that YouTuber who's already covering that stuff. What even is 2kliksphilip? Is he education? Entertainment? Is he a tech channel? Skyrim YouTuber? Game maker? Game player? A meme channel? It seems like he's a bit of everything, except personality, which is unfortunately the one kind of thing that benefits from the diverse sort of content that 2kliksphilip wants to cover. How dare YouTube put 2kliksphilip's videos next to 2-minute papers? Clearly all that is 2kliksphilip's fault. Get him. It's understandable though, isn't it? Yet it could so easily have been the other way around, where 2kliksphilip gained a large and loyal audience who loved him for the randomness and freshness that each video provided. But no, each new video and topic covered serves to alienate his existing audience in some way or another, because these videos aren't about 2kliksphilip. They're about the topics he's covering, and the topics that 2kliksphilip tries to cover are too diverse, too random, yet at the same time contain way too much upscaling. You wouldn't expect it, would you? You'd imagine 3kliksphilip being a CSGO channel to contain a much more competitive and toxic comment section, but it isn't like that in the slightest. 3kliksphilip is the friendliest one in the Klik Empire. I think it's because 3kliksphilip is well established in his niche, known for what he does. CSGO's been out for a decade now, its audience matured, and anybody still hanging around is familiar with and fond of the scene the way it is. Plus, people only see 3kliksphilip's channel if they want to. But then it could be worse. This kliksphilip channel did that COVID diary for a while, which didn't gain a new audience, but it did alienate a lot of the existing audience, which now doesn't just hate this channel but also my other ones as well, simply because this channel did something to do with COVID. So yeah, in a weird turn of events, 3kliksphilip is now the friendliest channel in the Klik Empire. I now understand that more is less, and that I might do better to split 2kliksphilip up into several different channels, each covering a certain type of thing. I just don't have enough Philips to do that. When doing it at the time, I see my YouTubing as an ever-changing, continuously evolving kind of thing. Yet with hindsight, each year is very much a closed box. Early on each year I shake up my style, then stick to that until the end of the year, whereupon I reflect upon how I did and start the cycle again. I know I do this because when doing this analysis every year, I claim not to have a plan for the following year. And by not having a plan, it seems to create a void that I can't help but fill within the first few weeks with new plans and notions, which I then carry with me through till the end of the year. I like voids. An empty desktop encourages me to fill it with new projects, an empty room inspires decoration, and an empty life is quickly filled with new experiences. I see now that this was the blessing of COVID. I mean, most of it was horrible, but I really did like those first few months where life seemed to grind to a halt, and it was as though everybody found joy in places and circumstances that didn't exist before. I don't know why it impacted me so much because I've always operated from my bedroom, so you'd think for me COVID would be business as normal. But in that first half of 2020 I found extra time and motivation to start running, doing jigsaws, playing games again, and even to make a Half-Life 2 level or two. So yeah, Voids are great, essential even for creative endeavours, and in finding the motivation to work on them. The problem is, voids don't tend to last long, and once that space in your life has been filled with a project of some kind that you started, you're stuck with that until either it's finished or abandoned. And I don't abandon things anymore. But right now, my life is out of voids. My music making journey is blocked by Audiogram 2, my game making journey, Destruction Darius 2. My desktop is still full of projects I promised myself I'd finish in November last year, and so on. So while I like to imagine January as being a new beginning, it's really just a space for me to finally finish everything I promised myself I'd do last year. Let's just hope it doesn't spill over to February. So I suppose my goal for 2023 is to create voids, and then to fill them with new stuff, and to repeat that as many times as possible. Maybe this is the main difference between 13-year-old Philip and 33-year-old Philip, because when I was 13 I had unlimited enthusiasm, but it was probably because my whole life was just a big void, where anything I started on was soon abandoned for something else. 33-year-old Philip has traded some of that enthusiasm for results. I know the grind, I know that reaching the end of a project takes time, effort and dedication. I don't enjoy the journey quite so much, but at least I reach a destination of sorts, which is kind of important when I make stuff for a living. But I want to make time for other things. I want to get my VHS archive digitized. I want to get music released. I want to have more time to be free to spend with people and the animal that I care about. I want to live.